We'll go ahead and call to order the special meeting on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Duncan. Here. Bartlinger. Here. Gabriel. Here. Kramer. Here. Whitehead.
Here.
Next, I'll look to perfect and approve the agenda. Can't any changes to the?
No changes.
We have a motion to perfect and approve the agenda. I'll second. Duncan.
Yes.
Bartlinger.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Kramer. Yes. Whitehead.
Yes.
Next, do we need to have a motion to open the public hearing since this is just a public hearing, or are we fine to just roll right into it?
You can do that.
All right, I'll move to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Duncan? Yes. Bartlinger?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Kramer? Yes. Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, we are now in the public hearing, so the first item that we have on here is the fiscal 26 budget property tax levy public hearing. Cameron, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share a presentation here this evening. As we go through this. So this presentation is for the FY 26 property tax levy public hearing. This hearing was, public was given notification in a mailer that's sent out by the county. It listed 3 public hearings, the school, the county, and the cities. So this is the city portion of that letter. City council begins work on the city staff begins work on the budget in October. And between October and December, the city staff are working diligently to prepare estimates and projections for the city council. And then in January and part of February, the city council works at length to determine a responsible city budget for the upcoming year that will begin on July 1st. So this budget that we're going to be reviewing tonight will begin on July 1st of this year, 2025, and go through June 30th of 2026. This slide talks about the 2026 revenues. So city's revenues are based on assessed property values. In Iowa, property values are assessed at a 100% rate. And then the state applies a rollback to determine how much of the property assessed value is taxable. So it varies depending on the property type. This schedule shows the property type and the rollbacks for our current year of FY 25 and FY 26. For a city like Solon, with the majority of our community as residential property, we're always very interested to see what the residential rollback is going to be, which for FY 26 is 47.4316%. So that means if you have a house that has 100% valuation, they're going to roll it back to 47.43%, and that's the portion that's taxable. I'm going to go back just for a minute. Commercial, industrial, and railroad is taxed at 90%. And however, the first 150,000 of assessed value is taxed at the residential rate. So that's what we would consider a dual rate. Agricultural has a different rate as well. Cities and states have had a long history of rollback connection. So how it works is that the state determines, the assessor determines the assessed value. The state determines the rollback, And depending on what kind of property you have, determines on how much of your property is taxable. This particular slide, the red one, shows the historical trend of the rollback. Since 1978, the red line is residential. And the top line is 100%, and you can see for several years, commercial and industrial, railroad, utilities were taxed at that 100%. And then it dips down to 90%. That happened in 2013. There was some property tax reform. The other interesting line here is the green line. And with that 2013 property tax reform, it changed multi-residential from 100% to a sliding scale to ultimately be the same as residential. And so that's why you see a pretty sharp decline in the green line. This chart is, this pie chart is a representation of the property tax that's collected in Iowa. And this is an example of FY24. And I included this because it gives a good depiction of how the property taxes that are paid in Iowa, where they go. So, property taxes, 57% of the property taxes collected in the state are from residential. Ag land makes up 13%, ag buildings 1%, commercial 21%, railroads 1%, industrial 6%, utilities 1%. So interesting to see how the property taxes, what the different classes of how the property taxes are distributed or are collected and from what class. This is for the same for FY24. Now we don't have data for FY25 because we're currently in FY25. That'll end on June 30th. So this is the most recent full year data that we have. So those property taxes that are received are then distributed. And this is a representation again of all of Iowa for FY24, which was last year. 40% went to schools, 22% went to counties, 30% to cities, and 8% to other. Other can be township, cemetery, assessor, ambulance. There's various taxing entities. And this chart that I asked Susie to pass out kind of highlights across the top all the various taxing entities in Johnson County. Historically, cities have been able to collect $8.10 for every 1,000 valuation of property in their city. That changed last year with House File 718. So instead of the 810 levy, it's been what they call ratcheted back depending on your growth. So if you are a fast growing city and you grew at 10%, they're going to ratchet you down 3% to 7%. This has been a pretty major and significant change in the property tax system. We haven't seen a change of this magnitude in several years. So this is Solon the last few years. So you can see the second line from the top in 2025, which is our current year. Our taxable growth grew 9.3%. However, it was ratcheted back to 6.24. For this upcoming year that begins in July 1st, property valuations grew 10.56%, and those are going to be ratcheted back to 7.34. This means that instead of the 810 that the cities could typically collect, it's being scaled back. This has been a program the state legislators have implemented, and it's called a consolidated general levy rate. And whereas there used to be different levies that cities could collect for individually, they've combined these. It is definitely taken some learning curve for everyone to adjust to. General fund property tax, so that consolidated general fund levy is important because that's where the bulk of all the city's expenses are in their general fund. The other funds are debt service, which is where bonds have to be paid, trust and agencies, where money that's donated or collected for a specific purpose is held, and our water and sewer called proprietary funds because they're expected to act like a business. There should be enough money coming into those from those water and sewer charges to cover the expenses of operating the water and sewer facilities. So the general fund is where the bulk of all the city's expenses lie. This is historically what the city has collected in dollars. You can see in 22, 23, 24, that was the 810. That was that $8.10 of every $1,000 of valuation in the city. In 2025, that was under the new form, the ratchet back. And then for FY26, that number is again the ratcheted back number that I showed in the previous slide. For the city of Solon, the projected revenues are coming in as shown in this pie chart. 71% of the revenues that come into the general fund for the city come from property taxes. 5% comes from the library contribution that the county provides, garbage fees, recreation fees, interest, and licensing and permits. So as you can see from this slide, cities rely heavily on property taxes to keep city services going. As we look at the expenditures, the council has to take into account the employee cost index. Part of the budget process is not only looking at the revenues, but looking at the expenditures. So the state provides a lot of information to cities that talk about what the consumer price index is expected to be, employee cost index. Council also has to look at IPER rates, which is the retirement system for government, city, and government employees in Iowa. And then also look at the property insurance increases and health insurance increases. So these are some of the big ones that really impact that budget from year to year as far on the expense side of things. This is a chart that shows the expected expenditures for FY26. The largest categories are for general government, and that is a category that houses our building permits. So that is typically a large part because the building permits do bring in a significant amount of dollars. However, they funnel right back out as those fees are funneled through to a private contractor that handles our building inspections. Public Works at 25%, library services at 15%, parks at 8%, recreation at 9%, garbage and recycling 8%, and public safety 10%. Understanding city levy rates. So I've tried to set a foundation of the purpose of this hearing tonight is to understand city property tax levies. So to do so, thank you for being patient as we did a short preview of how the budget process works and the process that the city goes through. So the first part of the property tax system is, of course, the valuations assigned by the assessor. The second part is that rollback that the state applies to that 100% valuation. And then from there, cities and all the taxing agencies along the top of this sheet have an opportunity to request a levy, which equates to a certain amount of dollars for their needs. The current levy rate for the city of Solon is $11.21. That's for this current year. For FY 26, that is going to decrease 20 cents to 11.01. This chart is available on our city website. I know it's difficult to read, but it's on the city website for you to take a closer look at. So what this shows are the different levy rates that the city is going to be requesting, and then how it is applied to the valuation and the rollback, and then calculated into property tax for the city portion of your property tax. In blue in the first column, this current year, if you have for every 1,000 valuation, 100% valuation, then you would pay $519.66 of property tax. Next year in FY 26, once you apply the rollback and the new levy rate, which is 20 cents less, it's $522.34 per 100,000 of assessed valuation. So an interesting question would be how does the levy go down, but property tax are going up a few dollars? That is because assessed values change and the rollback changes. Those are things that are out of the control of cities. And so those things are important in the whole picture. So while the city's portion is decreasing, we have no control over the other factors. This is the area cities in Johnson County. This is our current budget year right now. And the city of Solon has the third lowest levy rates in the county. And I've been doing this for 11 years now, and we've held that spot all those years. Third lowest. I don't have the data for this upcoming year, but hope to have that soon. I'm going to stop the presentation and wanted to take a moment to explain the sheet that I had passed out. Right now, this is our current year. This is for all the incorporated cities in Johnson County. I've highlighted across the top all the entities that are able to tax and ask for a levy. I've highlighted Solon. And then I've highlighted the 11.21, which is our current levy rate. And then next to that is the total. So if you live in the city, all the entities across the top are asking for a portion of the property tax. And so that's how this current year is assessed if you live in the city of Solon. And they update this each year. And so once everybody turns in their budgets, then they'll calculate this for the coming year. So as you can see, the total levy, if you live in the city limits, is $35.55 of every 1,000 valuation of property. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions?
Do we have questions on that? From the audience, any questions of the information? Thanks for the thorough review. And there are. Yeah.
very closer, and I don't pretend to understand this whole situation. But my wife and I moved here 9 years ago and absolutely loved it, love the city, everything that's going on and stuff. Proximity is to Cedar Rapids, Iowa State is a very attractive area. I just made some notes going through this today, knowing this meeting was coming. And in the 9 years we've lived here, our property taxes have increased $1,736 in 9 years. With an average increase of $193 a year, our property taxes have gone up. Our assessed values increased $169,000 in 9 years, with an average increase of $18,777 per year. Our assessed value has gone up. Looking at this, the explanation I heard tonight, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but the valuation of our homes in Solon is high. And I think that's what's driving up the property. I mean, it's just, you know, people like me and my family, we're in a fixed income. And I mean, at what point are we being driven away? I mean, we can't, I mean, I'm sure we can go work at Casey's or something and make a little extra money. But I mean, I trust that this is being considered by people like our council and the supervisor of Johnson County and stuff. But I keep hearing on TV how the governor or the Democrat Party is talking about a property tax freeze for senior citizens and stuff. But in my opinion, something needs to be done. That I don't know what the answer is, but I hope you keep looking for it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the audience?
Yeah, I got a question here. The city councilor, I was at the school board last, I think, about 27th. And he's gonna increase it 14 point some cents per thousand. But my question is, he's not gonna freeze the money for being charged. It's gonna go along with whatever you people assess the value at. So that 14 cents, it might be just 14%, but at the end, it's gonna be on, in my particular case, $600 or, $600 more. But the assessed value went from $475 to $580. Now, why is that? What justifies that price of my home being worth $70,000 more money? Can you tell me?
I'd say that's something the county assessor does assessments every other year with that. And it was this year. I looked mine up today and I'm not thrilled with the increase that it had either. On it in the off years, and this is my understanding from attending one of the assessors meetings earlier in the years, that you can submit review of what your assessed value was, and they'll go through and they may change it from that. Or you can contest what it came back at. As Candy mentioned, that as the city standpoint goes, we set what the tax levy is in town, but between the rollback that the state provides and what the assessed value that the county provides, that drives a lot of change. So even though our tax levy is going down 20 cents per thousand of taxable value in the next fiscal year, for every $100,000 of value of your house, your taxes are going up for the city's portion $3, even though we've lowered the levies. With that, and so as far as the home values go, that goes through the county assessor. With that, it went through different statistics on how they're rated, so it's they're graded more or less how their assessments do, what percentage are contested, everything like that. And so if there are concerns over your assessed value, there is a way to contest that with the county. I'm not sure, I would assume the instructions are either on the assessor's website or information at the assessor's office, but as far as the assessed value goes, that's something that is provided to the city versus the city figuring or anything like
You
that.
have to go through the assessment.
Through the county assessment.
I have heard of people having success with that in
Yeah.
town. So I think it might be worth it.
It's called the Board of Review. They're the ones who do the assessment reviews it might, I know you got, there might be some information on the back of the sheet you got probably in the last week that showed your assessment going up. If not, contact the assessor's office and ask about the Board of Review application or something like, the Board of Review is the one that does the assessment, appeals.
But the city does not get a full report in terms of what the assessor has done for the city itself, the properties within the city itself.
I'll get a total, Tammy, is
You
that
get a
right?
total.
That's, so we don't have a breakdown of,
Individual, no, you get a total increase.
Yep.
Doesn't that draw your attention in terms of,
It does, what hurts that though is as we're a growing community, so if you think all the new homes that are coming up and our growth was what's a little over 10%, as Tammy shared, because of that ratchet back, we aren't able to capitalize 100% of that growth that we had. So it's essentially as we grow, we need to do more with less because we don't get that full taxable growth.
right, but isn't that development driving the valuations that the assessor is assessing us on?
I can't speak to,
so, I mean, just for a general thing, every time you sell a property in the city or the state of Iowa, there's a declaration of value that's filed. And so the state, the county gets all that information and everybody knows that property values are going through the roof right now. I mean, I represent other cities and we have properties that are assessed at $160,000, detached garages going for $250,000, that are built in the 1940s. So the property values in Johnson County are really high compared to a lot of areas of the state, but I mean, yeah, so, I mean, people are paying more, so when the more you pay, they get that information, your assessments end up going up. I'm assuming they have classes of, bedrooms and bathrooms and how big and how many garages, like stuff like that.
I didn't bring it with me, I forgot it, I have it in the documentation. I just received it from a friend in the mail. Solon is the 12th most expensive city in Iowa in which to live, and I have documentation. And I just want to say, I've often said before, my concern is that we're developing beyond our infrastructure. And we're now in a position where, for a lot of us, the taxes are getting seriously high, seriously. And yet we're losing the law enforcement, the animal control, we don't have the money, the street improvements and so forth, the capital, because it's invested in this growth. And I think we need to look at that because the more we're paying, the less services and access to service that we have. There's got to be a reason. Many of the houses at these enormous prices, I live next door to one, aren't selling. And I think we're gonna see a decline in the turnover in these expensive properties. People just can't afford it, get the loans. We don't know what the next year or two promises us. And I think we want to be careful and not get in too deep with where we're heading. Thank you.
with that, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing.
Second. All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Bartle? Yes. Gabriel?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yes.
Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, that takes us out of the public hearing, and with that, do we have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
Move to adjourn special meeting.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed?